seen a lot of new faces because this is the first lecture we're doing this year, and this is sort of a different year than last year because now, as I can't stop talking about, we have money, we have funding now for society. So the things we do are going to be different than we did last year. So I'm just happy to see so many new faces because we're going to need help, using that money wisely. So I wanted to pick a topic today that was it's hard to pick topics of these things because you want to make it accessible. You don't want to make it just a waste of time. You don't want to make it it's not gritty enough. So I picked a topic I think that is accessible but still has that bite. For most of the session today, we're going to be looking in depth at Obama, although I didn't advertise it like that, but just what's turned out. So we're going to be looking at a lot about how he's responded to America's problems, number one, and we're going to look in depth at what problems America has. And of course, America is a very important nation, and it's understanding what's going on in America is quite pivotal to understanding what's going on in the world. And right now, this headline is probably, you must have seen this headline somewhere. This is what's triggered me to, this is an important thing to do. Because in America, last month, no jobs were created. And to have that headline across America, number one, this is a top story in America. Well, it was a top story about a week ago. This was a top story in America. And to have that as a top story, it's not only undermining America as a nation, but it's undermining Obama's presidency because the blame goes on him for everything that's gone wrong in the economy. The blame goes on him and the Democrats. So this is the first time, to just give you the intensity of the situation, because for the first 5 minutes here, I'm just going to be throwing stats, but just give you the intensity of the situation. This is the first time this has happened since 1945. So this is the worst labour market conditions in America in the post-war era. So that's what will give you the intensity of the situation. So here are other things that you might find shocking in America right now. 14 million people are unemployed. When Obama came to office in January 2009, the unemployment rate was about 5%. So, and in January 2000, and in 2009, it jumped up to about 8%. Now it's at 9%. Matt, can you read that third prediction? Third line, the prediction, read the prediction.
Well, if GDP grows at an average of 3.6% in 2013, employment markets won't fully recover until 2017.
So look at what this says about America's future. This is what America faces at the moment. This is why I say America is in crisis. Because even if they grow at that rate, which is not going to happen, that alone is not going to happen. It's very unlikely going to happen. That is when people predict that the economy will fully recover. So Obama is increasingly losing support. And again, Matt.
Just quickly, why have you picked 3.6% as the...
Oh, I didn't pick that. Someone else.
Was it alright?
I imagine, no. I didn't pick that. So this is someone else's prediction. This means that Obama is increasingly losing support. And youth unemployment, this is at 18%. And I'll talk to you about, there's something very interesting about the labour market response to this recession because there is one group that is increasingly affected. Every subgroup has the worst conditions in the post-war era. There is one group that is very interesting to look at. So, as I said, Obama responded to this. He responded hastily, but then he had to respond quickly because, as you see, this is an important situation in America. Obama responded with an address to Congress, and 31.4 million people tuned in. Just to give you the sort of relevance, just to give you other figures. For America, for his address to Libya, 25.6 million people viewed in. And for the death of Obama, about 56 million people viewed in. So this is... What did I say? The death of Obama... For the death of Osama, 56.3 million people viewed in to watch what he had to say. So I'm just going to quickly watch the first 2 minutes of this. This is...
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Vice President, members of Congress, and fellow Americans. Tonight, we meet at an urgent time for our country. We continue to face an economic crisis that has left millions of our neighbors' jobs, and a political crisis that's made things worse. This past week, reporters have been asking, what will this speech mean for the president? What will it mean for Congress? How will it affect their polls in the next election? But the millions of Americans who are watching right now, they don't care about politics. They have real life concerns. Many have spent months looking for work. Others are doing their best just to scrape by, giving up nights out with the family to save on gas or make a mortgage, postponing retirement to send a kid to college. These men and women grew up with faith in an America where hard work and responsibility paid off. They believed in a country where everyone gets a fair shake and does their fair share. Where if you stepped up, did your job, and were loyal to your company, that loyalty would be rewarded as you sell your benefits. Maybe a raise once in a while. If you did the right thing, you could make it. Anybody could make it in America. And for decades now, Americans have watched that compact erode. They have seen the decks too often stacked against them. And they know that Washington has not always put their interests first. The people of this country work hard to meet their responsibilities. The question tonight is whether we'll meet ours. The question is whether, in the face of an ongoing national crisis, we can stop the political circus and actually do something to help the economy.
So the significant focus of what he was saying there, obviously this is Obama, you can see here, this is Obama fighting for his life, fighting for his presidency. And he focuses very much on the political crisis. And there is definitely a political crisis in Congress. You have here politics getting in the way of economics. There are Republicans and Democrats, and I'll explain the difference between the two in a second, but you have them going against each other. You have them, Republicans are seen as uncompromising. They have no stomach for compromise. And as you see later, they even reject, they're able to turn Obama's $447 billion deal and to reduce it into $11 billion deal, which is 2%. They're saying that they only agree with 2% of the total plan here. So Republicans are getting in the way, basically, but Obama's saying here there's a political crisis. And the way he presents his bill to Congress, he presents it in a way that makes it very hard for Republicans to reject it, because what you have to do to sort of moderate such extreme opinions, you have to make sure that the ideas, you have to make sure you balance your ideas with ideas that you can show to them that they've come up with. So a lot of his policies here have Republican parentage. So I just want to look quickly at American labour market in the Great Recession, just quickly, because since December 2007, America's labour market conditions have been deteriorating quite dramatically. I'll say it again, this is the worst labour market condition in the post-war era. And I said there's a particular group that's suffering quite extremely from this. And, well, there are three subgroups, but I'll let you decide what sort of person, what sort of situation would fit all three subgroups. So the young people are particularly affected by this, by the deteriorating labour market conditions. So young people, the less educated, are particularly affected by this, and people in ethnic minorities. So you can see there is, and male. I said three, but there's four, male. So there's four subgroups that are increasingly affected by the recession. So can you think of a situation where one person would fit into those four groups? I certainly have an idea. Okay, I'll tell you my idea.
Obviously, young black American.
Yeah, the young black American. The young black American who was kicked out of high school, say, or kicked out of college, or kicked out of high school. Those sort of people face increasingly poor prospects. So that, again, that is American crisis. And if you watch, I'll show more of his address, but there are running themes in his address. Number one, he's trying to moderate the political situation we've talked about. Number two, he's using there's a lot of rhetoric that uses East Asia as, oh, look at what they're doing, look at what we're not doing. So again, he plays on all the cliches to make sure the Congress stand up and sort of accept his ideas. And I said that males are increasingly effective. This is what we call a man session. This is because males are being affected disproportionately to women. I know, we call it a lad session or something, but this is what a man session is what it's called technically. So not only does America face poor employment prospects, they face low growth. So again, as I said, this is all on Obama's shoulders. Okay, well, so basically, let me sum up what exactly he's American. We'll listen to him soon, but basically, he's trying to restore fairness and security. He's trying to create jobs in America, and he's trying to get re-elected. You can translate it as that. And what's the Republican agenda? The Republicans, although they have the best interest of American heart, at the end of the day, Republicans do not want to pass something that's going to get Obama re-elected. So you have to think about that in your heads. So here are the next relevant.
The question is whether we can restore some of the fairness and security that has defined this nation since our beginning. Those of us here tonight can't solve all our nation's woes. Ultimately, our recovery will be driven not by Washington, but by our businesses and our workers. But we can help. We can make a difference. There are steps we can take right now to improve people's lives. I am sending this Congress a plan that you should pass right away. It's called the American Jobs Act. There should be nothing controversial about this piece of legislation. Everything in here is the kind of proposal that's been supported by both Democrats and Republicans, including many who sit here tonight. And everything in this bill will be paid for. Everything.
I don't know how exactly that's going to work. I don't know exactly how everything's going to be paid for.
The purpose of the American Jobs Act is simple. To put more people back to work and more money in the pockets of those who are working. It will create more jobs for construction workers, more jobs for teachers, more jobs for veterans, and more jobs for long-term unemployed. It will provide a tax break for companies who hire new workers, and it will cut payroll taxes in half for every working American and every small business. It will provide a jolt to an economy that has stalled and give companies confidence that if they invest and if they hire, there will be customers for their products and services. You should pass this jobs plan right away.
You can see the urgency in everything he says now.
Everyone here knows that small businesses are where most new jobs begin. And you know that while corporate profits have come roaring back, smaller companies have. So for everyone who speaks so passionately about making life easier for job creators, this plan's for you. Pass this jobs bill. Pass this jobs bill, and starting tomorrow, small businesses will get a tax cut if they hire new workers or if they raise workers' wages. Pass this jobs bill, and all small business owners will also see their payroll taxes cut in half next year. If you have 50 employees making an average salary, that's an $80,000 tax cut. And all businesses will be able to continue writing off the investments they make in 2012. It's not just Democrats who have supported this kind of proposal. 50 House Republicans have proposed the same payroll tax cut that's in this plan. You should pass it right away. Pass this jobs bill and we can put people to work rebuilding America. Everyone here knows we have badly decaying roads and bridges all over the country. highways are clogged with traffic. Our skies are the most congested in the world. It's an outrage. Building a world-class transportation system is part of what made us an economic superpower. And now we're going to sit back and watch China build newer airports and faster railroads at a time when millions of unemployed construction workers could build them right here in America?
We're Republicans will be chasing the loudest. Look what gets the biggest response from there.
There are private construction companies all across America just waiting to get to work. There's a bridge that needs repair between Ohio and Kentucky. It's on one of the busiest trucking routes in North America. A public transit project in Houston that will help clear up one of the worst areas of traffic in the country. And there are schools throughout this country that desperately need renovating. How can we expect our kids to do their best in places that are literally falling apart? This is America. Every child deserves a great school, and we can give it to them if we act now.
You can say he's doing a good job there. He's giving them exactly what they want. 31 million Americans are tuned in, and you clapped comically, but Americans in their rooms will be standing up, will be standing up and applauding what he has to say there, because he's using every single cliche in the book, and he even ends it with our children, think about our children. And for Republicans, he uses China as the devil. We need to keep up with China. So he's using every cliche in the book to, number one, moderate the political situation in Congress and to gain support of Americans. So basically, there are two ways he's doing this. He's doing this quite unorthodox. This is quite unorthodox because he's combining tax cuts with making it easy for businesses to function. He's combining that with a huge fiscal program, a huge spending in infrastructure, building roads, building bridges. So on one side he's appeasing the Republicans, and on another side he's doing what we expect Democrats to do. So here's the economics of it. Basically, giving tax breaks to people to hire. You're making it easier for people to hire. You're increasing the incentive for firms to take on new workers. Hopefully that will mean more workers are taken on. If you're spending on infrastructure, you're predicting that, number one, infrastructure will improve the long-term growth prospects of your economy, which will lead to more jobs in the future. Or immediately, you're hoping that investing in construction, investing in infrastructure will mean more jobs are created. So from that aspect, we're not criticizing Obama yet. From that aspect, these are sound ideas, and these have been received quite well by economists. These are good ideas. There's nothing controversial in this bill. He even says it. There's nothing controversial in this bill at all. But there's something quite stupid. Well, not stupid, but because he's reacted so quickly, there isn't actually a bill ready to vote or even to be discussed yet. His Jobs Act is just this speech at the moment. So although he's saying pass this now, there's nothing to pass. It's just a speech. So for America, there's nothing to pass. So what he could have done is actually drafted a bill. But okay, that's one criticism of Obama. So yeah, he's trying to restore fairness.
Yeah, you're saying it's uncontroversial. I'd say that's pretty uncontroversial for a nominally left of centre party leader.
Well, for Democrats, some Democrats will be appalled that he's conceding so much to what Republicans want. But I think they'd also appreciate the fact that what's going on in Congress, he has to do that. Some people even say, I don't even think this will get through. He has to moderate Republicans.
So I think it's still controversial.
Well, controversial within the Democrats, not controversial.
I think even if the centre-right coalition in this country tried to introduce an act like that, that would be controversial.
Well, controversial within the people of America.
Because I think because I've explained the intensity of the situation. To respond like that, I don't think the situation sort of warrants a huge response like that. That's the way I see it. So it's not controversial in that sense.
It's not this controversial. In America, they introduced a similar program post-recession.
Yeah, I mean, he's responding how the Hoovers have responded. He's responding how Roosevelt has responded to recession. So this isn't controversial in that sense. I mean, he's not. If to be controversial, this would have to be purely an infrastructure project. So all he's saying, let's spend 447 billion on purely infrastructure. So construction jobs, building bridges, building roads. That would be controversial. So this is basically the breakdown from the economists, not from me. And you see the biggest proportion of that is basically Obama's baby, the modernizing America infrastructure. That's the bulk of this plan. And as I said, remember later we'll find something that says that House Republicans have reduced this plan to 11 billion. So you'll see later. So as I said, this basically summarizes what he has in mind. So tax rate for hiring, making it easier to hire workers, tax relief for middle class. He hopes that, because part of this plan is increasing tax for the upper classes, those who earn an extortion, earn a lot of money. So if you're giving tax relief for the middle class, who have a higher propensity to consume, you're hoping that consumption will increase. And you're hoping that you won't affect the consumption of the upper class significantly. Also, his pathways back to work, he's training workers, because one reason, unemployment is it's not a rigid concept, unemployment, because unemployment isn't just that there aren't enough jobs. Unemployment can be that businesses and firms, they have jobs, but they can't find the workers to match those jobs. They can't find skilled workers to match those jobs. So you'll be dealing with that unemployment if you train and invest in workers. And of course, rebuilding, modernising America with the infrastructure project and with building roads. So of course, this isn't without criticism. There's a lot to criticise here. Number one, we can criticise his tax breaks for firms. How are you so sure firms will be willing to hire workers? Why? Just because monetary incentive isn't the most powerful, doesn't trump all. It isn't an all-powerful incentive. Tax breaks to firms does not immediately mean that they'll hire more workers. After going through such a recession, they can be easily understood if they just absorb the new money they get in new profits. So these tax breaks doesn't automatically mean firms will hire new workers. And also, I'm going to talk about Ricardian equivalence, and everyone who knows me knows that that's my pet theory. And Ricardian equivalence basically means that when it's a way of analysing macroeconomic policy. And for Obama, when you lower taxes, no, you don't, what? All right, so when you lower taxes, you expect this will increase consumption. But Ricardian equivalence says that if you lower taxes, it doesn't automatically mean people will spend more money, because people will actually save that money, because they have foresight that a tax cut now could lead to a tax rise in the future. So a tax cut now, you're not fooling anyone by cutting taxes now. And that's increasingly relevant to America, because America's facing a huge deficit, and he says this will be 100% paid for. I don't understand how those two will match. He's saying that will be paid for. He's giving tax cuts. So how do you expect the middle classes and middle classes to spend money if you're just coming out of deficit, number one, you're dealing with a deficit, and you're just coming out of a deep recession. So you can't expect a tax cut to immediately lead to spending. People aren't foolish. If you cut taxes, people may spend that money, and people may save that money. So all of the money you think you're going to generate from a tax cut is not always the case. And infrastructure. I don't really have any criticism personally against infrastructure, but Republicans will say that you're pouring more money into a broken system. There is no need to spend there. Spending money, government programs, Republicans will argue, they never work. You're wasting money, you're wasting time. So I personally don't have a criticism of the infrastructure project, but that's a criticism presented. And also, one important thing is that there is a criticism of his plans, depending on the way you look at his plans. If you look at it as a permanent fix to America's problems, then this is stupid. This is not going to work, because these are temporary policies meant to deal with temporary problems. So it's for a temporary shock, a temporary boost to employment. This isn't solving America's structural problems. This won't solve America's structural problems. America's structural problem is that there's a lack of demand. This is going to temporarily improve demand. This isn't going to solve America's structural problems. So if you look at it as Obama dealing with America's problems forever, this comes short. This comes really short. But if you treat it as Obama trying to temporarily boost employment, then this is very good. And I think there's a lot to gain from temporarily improving employment, because, as I've said, there were 6 million people in long-term unemployment, and young people, 18% of young people unemployed. So if you're having high amounts of youth unemployment, think about the long-term growth prospects for an economy. If you're having young people out of work for a long period of time, they're not gaining the skills they will need in the future when you're looking for your economy to recover. So a temporary boost may be wise, yeah.
When you have credit agencies that are saying to America, if you don't start cutting your debt mountain, we will cut your credit rating, so it will be more expensive for you to loan money. So do you think that this type of plan is acceptable if the credit rating agencies are saying, well, if you don't cut your debt, then we're going to have a problem with keeping your credit rating?
See, Obama's sort of aware of that, because 5 minutes later he says, although we're spending all of this, tomorrow I'm coming up with a bigger deficit reduction plan. But then he says earlier, and then later again, this will be 100% paid for. So I don't think America trying to kill two birds with one stone. If this is the smart way to do it, I don't know. They're dealing in isolation with one problem, but by doing that, you might be exacerbating another problem. But Obama says this will be 100% paid for, and then he says later he's going to announce a more ambitious deficit reduction plan. So these two things, for me, they don't match up. So I don't know where he's going there. So.
At any point does he say where it's being paid for from, like what areas, or does that come in his deficit reduction plan?
No, it doesn't come in his speech. That may be, I don't know where he thinks he's going to just pull the money out of, but this would be 100% paid for somehow. Let's just take it as his word. Yeah.
Would that be why the producer of the memo?
No, because if you read the memo, the reasons they give are stupid. They're not. None of it is. Well, I'll say they're stupid. I don't want to be too one-sided, but they're stupid. They're not. They're not what you think someone that's intelligent would come up with. Well, that's my.
Is it not what you do now?
It's not what I do now. I would never ever put in the Republican Party Congress or anything like that. So quickly, I think to assess Obama's plans and to assess an economy's response to a deep recession, it's important to look at an economy that's fared really well. So Germany's labour market has fared really well with the recession. Their unemployment has barely gone down. And if you look at America, which unemployment has gone up from 5% to 9%. So Germany has done quite well if you compare it to other market economies. And there are loads of reasons for that. Number one, I don't know if this is being rude, Miri might be offended by this, but Germans, we can say, Miri, that Germans are naturally pessimistic. So yes, is that true? Say yes. Yes, okay.
Speaks for Germany.
Yes, Germans are naturally pessimistic. So in the boom, manufacturers weren't like America. In the boom, as soon as America's booming, everyone's looking to hire, everyone's looking to expand their business. In Germany, manufacturers were less optimistic about the boom. They saw it, they hired new workers, they didn't hire that many workers, they expanded their business, but they all did it in a reasonable amount. So a big part of why their labour market fared so well is because in the preceding boom, they didn't hire as many workers. So how are you going to fire workers that aren't there? But America, it's in their psyche to think big. I mean, even their response to their labour market crisis it's big. But then again, you're setting yourself up for even bigger failure. So Germany wouldn't react that way. Germany would do everything in moderation. And wage moderation. There's been downward pressure on wages because in Germany, the power of labour unions has decreased over the years. So that's something to think about. The working time account. This is quite genius because, and it's, again, you sort of see what America's missing. there's sort of, in Germany and in other European economies, there's a flexibility with how they make policy. There's a flexibility in how they think of labour markets. To solve unemployment, they won't just give tax cuts out, they won't just give tax breaks. What Germany did in 2003, they introduced a whole catalogue of reforms. One of them was a working time account, which meant that workers could work overtime without employers paying overtime premium. So what they did was that you saved up that premium, so you could use that up another time by taking time off. So is that clear? So you're working overtime, you're not earning any more because you're saving that to take time off. So German workers, coincidentally, by the time the recession hit, there was a lot of overtime premium left to spread out. So instead of firing workers, German firms are more willing to let workers use out that overtime premium. So that's one small factor. And coupled with that, it's very hard to fire a German worker. Although they're not quite cheap to death. The rules in Germany mean that to fire a German worker, you're having to pay huge amounts of firing costs. You're having to go through paperwork, and the state, the government, make an environment where firing a German worker is not only hard. There's lots of financial incentives not to fire a worker. There's something called short-time work in German, Kurzarbeit. Yeah, I said it right, then, correct. So short-time work, which means that firms can apply to the government, local governments, for aid. Let's call it aid. So their workers can work shorter hours. The workers can work short hours. Instead of firing them completely, the state will pay you to keep those workers on. So you can keep there loads of incentives to keep German workers working. And in America, their response to the labour market was bodies going. So bodies, unemployment, people going out of work. But in Germany, their response was people simply working less. So hours per worker went down, which is obviously a lot less detrimental to the economy if you're not as many people are out of work completely, but there are lots of people who just work less. And so you can see the German and American labour market experiences are completely polar opposites. And the real reason, well, I think the most important reason is this, because America's response to the boom was to hire, to expand. Germany's response to the boom, they did hire and expand, but they did so in a much more manageable sphere. So I think it's important to just see how does America fare with other economies? What's the global context of this? Because unemployment is not just an American concept, it's not just in America. Unemployment is a global phenomenon. And the Spanish even have a word for their unemployed youth. I won't pronounce that, but you can read that. Alex?
Los indignados.
They have a word. So, I wanted to say something. And that youth unemployment is a huge problem in Spain, it's a huge problem in other economies in Europe. And these 2 points are quite interesting, because there was an interesting article that said that looked at one specific worker in New York who lost their job. And she lost her job, I think she was a copywriter. She lost her job and her company moved to India. And her job had gone to an Indian worker who's now the copywriter. So, and this is quite tempting with this knowledge, to treat the global labour market as a zero-sum game. Are you familiar with that term? So one person can't gain without another person losing. So because a copywriter in India's game has meant that a copywriter in America has lost. So you're saying we can use this to understand why America is increasingly losing jobs. Because the comparative advantage is moving to places in East Asia, is moving to China. So Pakistani technicians are getting more work, but that means that workers in Mississippi are finding it harder to get work. So technology is hitting jobs significantly in America. And of course, a lot of American industry, a lot of American businesses are fueled by the internet. That's not creating jobs as the way it used to. There's not that many jobs available. Of course, utilities improving, but in fact, in terms of jobs, the internet is destroying jobs in America. So again, this is just, yeah, these are too small to read. These are just stats, and I hate throwing stats to people, so these are up there for anyone that likes stats. So, so again, okay, this is what someone said. Going back to the political situation, this is what someone's Mark Foner, who is a professor, he's an economist at Oregon. He said that I'm not very confident that anything will make it through Congress in this political climate. So this basically means that whatever we've been talking about, it's void. There's no need for it, because whatever Obama comes up with, whatever Democrats think is the right thing to do, nothing will make it past Republicans. Nothing will make it, and some people don't even think that this will make it to debate, let alone get passed. So this tells you how strongly people believe Republicans are getting, well actually, I'm being unfair, because I'm saying it's all Republicans here. It's not all their fault. It's just that I'd like to think it's all their fault. I won't deal with what Democrats are doing wrong, because I don't want to. But yeah, you can see Republicans seem to be aggravating the situation. I think Joss especially mentioned this when he was talking about. So this is where the two parties lie. Democrats in the centre-left, they're socially liberal, they're progressive, and Republicans are centre-right Americans. So the Americans, so just to give you an idea, I should have had this earlier really. Who's this, you know, and you were talking about him today. What do you think of Rick Perry?
He's got a very good record. I'm not sure if it's based on exactly what he's proposing to do as president. And who he is one of the Republican candidates going for president of America.
Yeah, exactly. This is, of course, we talked about Obama faces losing his job over this crisis. And you have someone here, we have a Republican candidate, Rick Perry, he's governor of Texas. And 40% of America's net new jobs have been created in Texas. That would undoubtedly be his biggest selling point when he looks to gain presidency. If you can say that my state has created 40% of net new jobs, and at the moment we're saying that presidential elections will hinge on the jobs prices, this man will come out very favourably. If he can sell that idea to American public that his state is creating jobs, so when he gets the presidency, America will create jobs. Simple. So yeah, that's Rick Perry, and I think that was just important to touch on. Again, more on what this is. Again, more on Congress. So we've been placing a lot of the blame on Republicans for aggravating the situation, choking Congress. That's what they've done basically. They've choked Congress. And I just want to put you to a memo. Is it the next slide? Yeah, this was a memo sent in September 17, 2011. Basically, they whittled down the plan from 447 billion to 11 billion. And in their memo, they pick and choose what they support, basically. To pick and choose what you support out of a 447 billion plan is reasonable, that's fair, but to whittle it down to 2% of what Obama is prescribing, surely that's quite, that doesn't make sense. For 2%, to say you only grew 2%, that doesn't match up there. And what's really quite remarkable is that they disagree, they pick out tax cuts. Now tax cuts are what define Republicans, that's what they moan for every single day of their lives. So for Republicans to say no to tax cuts, that's obviously saying right there, you're not ready to compromise, you're not ready to put the best interests of America at heart. And there's a reason for this. There's a lot more pressure on Democrats in Congress to act on the jobs crisis. Republicans still believe that the biggest problem in America is a deficit problem, which is reasonable, that's fine. There's a lot more pressure on them to respond to the deficit crisis than respond to the jobs crisis. That's just the way it is. So Republicans will feel no obligation to act on the jobs crisis because they know their voters care most about the deficit crisis. So are they being wise here? Maybe they are being wise about the whole situation. Okay. So does anyone have any, this is a conclusion, but does anyone have any more thoughts on Obama? Any questions about what I said before I sort of open discussion on Obama? Yes?
Talking about his public works program, you have any problem with that? Is there any, I've got no idea, what's the historical evidence for big public works investments.
Hoover Dam. Hoover Dam, that really did help America get back up and get back on the seats. So you Hoover Dam, number one. All the huge bridges you see around America. I can't
So
see
that was a successful.
Yeah, that number one, it led to increase the prospects of the economy, and number two, the jobs created. Construction is the biggest area you can increase jobs, I believe, in America. Construction.
Was there a debt crisis at that point?
No, well, yes, no, not exactly. So
Yeah,
we are dealing with we are dealing with conflicting problems. But as I said, what he's doing and what we're judging him on, he's dealing with one problem in isolation of other problems he may exacerbate. Yeah.
I was just going to say to that that there's a whole school of Kingsley Economics kind of bases itself on the fact that government spending will boost the economy.
Exactly.
What's
Well, but I think that I can't answer that because whenever I discuss it, I'm still thinking of America. You have a deficit problem. How are you spending 147 billion on revamping your economy if you're still dealing with that problem? So yeah, I do agree with you a bit there because you're dealing with what he's doing. He's reacting to problems the way other presidents have reacted, but he's dealing with completely new conditions. So perhaps that's not appropriate to do. To react in the same way to just spend money. Any other thoughts? Nope.
Is this just on Obama and unemployment?
Just everything you've heard so far, basically.
I mean, I have to agree with you about the Republicans in that they're being really stupid.
Maybe because I presented it one-sided, but I'll just say I agree. But
You are my only source for American
yeah,
policy.
exactly. I'm the only source. Maybe I should have been more balanced, but that's not a lot of evidence to say that Republicans aren't in the wrong zone.
Because the Republicans, this Rick Perry guy and Mitt Romney and the other presidential candidate, they're not at the stage where they're making concrete proposals yet. And in Congress, they've shown that they're willing to bring America to the brink. I mean, there was that whole, America almost defaulted in its debts and all that. So, but you say, their supporters care more about deficit than unemployment. So many of their supporters, because of the AstroTurf Tea Party campaign, convincing people at the lower levels that they support tax cuts and that they want to, get involved in this. So many of them are unemployed, and that was a big factor in the Tea Party rallies. So, why?
Well, that's interesting because the way people feel, they are voting to reflect that. So that's quite interesting. You're saying that a lot of aggravation, a lot of sort of anger has come back because of the jobs crisis, but the voting isn't reflecting that because Republicans are being stubborn, they aren't sort of responding compromisingly. They are being voted into Congress. They are being voted into I don't know exactly what goes on in American politics, but they're being voted into their little slots. I'll call it slots. Their little slots.
Maybe that this action can be kind of viewed because of re-election more than anything else. The public are going to be looking at the deficit and they're going to be looking at unemployment, things that they see to affect them. So if they see the president giving them new jobs, then they're going to vote for them rather than someone who's solving a deficit problem.
Exactly. I think that unemployment, the reason I did unemployment, well not the reason I did unemployment, the reason I think that we're talking so much about politics is because unemployment is a single economic phenomenon where politics come into play so much. Unemployment affects people. You're talking about election. What we hope, what we predict, people will go to the ballot boxes thinking about is unemployment because it affects people. The deficit crisis, I mean, it's not. It is a huge problem. But to imagine, think about what?
To the average American.
Yeah, to the average American. What does the deficit really mean? If you're cutting their taxes, you're not sending the right messages about how big a problem you think the deficit crisis is. Yeah.
Another thing about the unemployment crisis, when you compare it to Germany, I mean, the factor about Germans being naturally pessimistic.
Please word prudent.
That's symbolic a cultural factor. So is there a way forward in America to presumably what we can do is make America better equipped to deal with the crisis that just happened. So they're going to have to use better government regulation to make employers more prudent, or are you relying on? Well, not you yourself, you're not the president.
I'm not.
But people relying on sort of internal independent regulations.
See, the thing is, Obama said something so interesting there. He said because he said that some of you have decided that the only way to deal with our problems is in the ballot box. So that doesn't bode well on how America's going to be thinking about problems in this crisis. Because when I think about, oh, what should America do? The first hurdle you think of is how does anything get past Congress? So the first thing, you're filtering a lot of good ideas there, because only a few ideas will get to a narrow gap is what are Democrats going to agree with and what are Republicans going to agree with. And once they sort out that, once they increase the gap, because right now Republicans are making sure there's only a small gap of what can get through, 2%. So if they're willing to increase the gap of what can flow through, then we may even begin to discuss America's future when it comes to the jobs crisis. Any other? Yes?
That's independent of Republicans.
No.
You're painting them as kind of being evil because they're, whether Obama's bill is good or not, they're just voting it down so that if it is good, he won't get re-elected. I mean, as far as the Republicans are concerned, it's in the long-term interest for America to have a Republican president. So actually, as far as they're concerned, it's not them being evil and malicious, it's really them trying to secure a Republican president, which is in the long-term interest of America.
Why?
Whereas opposed to...
Do you believe that's in the long term?
I
Are you saying that they believe that is in the long term?
I say they're being evil and malicious.
Well, they are being. Well, okay, maybe they're not. Okay, they're not being evil and malicious. What's really angering me is that never you can't reduce a 447 billion. You can't reduce.
Well, you can. It's happened.
Well, yeah, they can. Well, but a reasonable human being who's willing to cooperate, willing to compromise, to go from 100% to 2%.
But
they're turning down, what's really crazy is they're turning down tax cuts. They're saying no to tax cut. Republicans say no to tax cut. It's a big deal.
The last note in his coffin.
But basically, a great quote on this is that they like the food that's being served, they don't like the waiter. Because they're feeding, Obama is trying to force feed them their own food, but they're not taking it. So that's why I think you're being uncompromising here. Yes.
Do you not think, though, that Democrats would behave exactly the same if Republicans were in power? This is the thing. This close to the American elections, and in America, with it being such a long election process, and the way that you've got that whole year of different votes across the country, do you not just think, though, that if Democrats were in power, they would want to try and secure their own candidate, just like the Republicans are trying to secure their own now?
We could say that, but that doesn't make we could. I'm not,
They didn't.
defending Democrats to the death.
They didn't in the initial recession under George Bush. They supported a lot of his initial plans.
Yes, but the Democrats never had a majority in the House like the Republicans do now, so that's why they've obviously got so much power.
Well, let me just respond to that. I think it's reasonable to say that, Republicans aren't all evil. I've been horrible, yeah, I have been quite one-sided. But you have to treat it as you have to judge the situation we have now. And right now, you're seeing Republicans being hot-headed and being stubborn. That's all we have to judge right now. So you could say, yes, Democrats do the same thing. But that doesn't excuse what Republicans are doing right now, to me. Matt, you have something to say.
I was just going to go on to the point. This is all the way through. It's kind of been Barack Obama and the economic crisis, and he's been kind of pinned. I know, obviously, being the president, he has to take some of the flack. But as he's been held up as sort of the saviour, how could he help? To what extent has him coming to power? How could he have done it differently?
Well, the biggest criticism of Obama is that he wasted 2 years of a majority. So that's where any criticism of Obama should start and end. Well, not end, but that's the basis of anything. He wasted 2 years of majority where he could have passed things. Now he wants to pass, but to us, he's wasted those 2 years. So that's one thing he's done wrong.
Is it a case of acting too little, too late, or is it waiting for the problem to become severe enough that then he can't do anything about it?
Well, to be honest, we have to remember his stimulus. I mean, he had a huge stimulus package that just didn't work as well as he wanted that to. So
why is it again?
Just on the point just made about Republicans believing what's in the long-term interest for America, it seems like, as I mentioned earlier, it's been brought to the brink again. How close is it now to disaster? Because it's like this whole long-term interest argument for Republicans, not being evil, is that America will do better with a Republican president, and that these measures aren't necessary right now. But Obama and the Democrats, of course, are saying these measures are necessary, otherwise apocalypse. So, how close are they to it?
Well, that's hard to sort of judge, really, because if we judge it on Obama's response, you'd think, oh my God, the world's going to end tomorrow. But if we just take a step back and think, how 9.1% of unemployment it's a big deal, basically. It's not, you can't find many parallels with market economies that in America's stage. So America does have a huge crisis. But how far? The real reason here is that America is recovering. America is not in recession. America is growing. But what the problem is a jobless recovery. This is jobless growth. This is where the problem is. So to say, is America in crisis? Yes. But the extent of that crisis is sort of subjective. There's a lot, you can discuss a lot more there, yes.
Is America in crisis, or is it just the whole economy of the globe in crisis? Because when you look at things in Greece, you look at things in Italy, today they've lost their credit rating, you look at things in Britain, we're struggling. Do you think it's just the whole global economy is struggling as a whole? So it's not just America something that's doing wrong, is what I'm trying to say. It's more of an epidemic.
Well, it is an epidemic, but I do think that America itself is in crisis, but that crisis isn't purely economical. There's a crisis with Congress, because of all. I just want to watch the last minute of Obama is speaking.
From the start, it's been a commitment. Some of them are living week to week, paycheck to paycheck, even day to day. They need help, and they need it now. I don't pretend that this plan will solve all our problems. It should not be, nor will it be, the last plan of action we propose. What's guided us from the start of this crisis hasn't been the search for a silver bullet. It's been a commitment to stay at it, to be persistent, to keep trying every new idea that works, and listen to every good proposal, no matter which party comes up with it. Regardless of the arguments we've had in the past, regardless of the arguments we will have in the future, this plan is the right thing to do right now. You should pass it, and I intend to take that message to every corner of this country. And I ask every American who agrees to lift your voice. Tell the people who are gathered here tonight that you want action now. Tell Washington that doing nothing is not an option. Remind us that if we act as one nation and one people, we have it within our power to meet this challenge. President Kennedy once said, our problems are man-made, therefore they can be solved by man. And man can be as big as he wants. These are difficult years for our country, but we are Americans. We are tougher than the times we live in, and we are bigger than our politics have been. So let's meet the moment, let's get to work, and let's show the world once again why the United States of America remains the greatest nation on earth. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Yeah, that's the final word. That's his last cry of plea to Congress and to America. Right now, he is touring around America, spreading that message. But I believe that all of his efforts are quite futile, because I personally don't think anything is going to get through Congress. And people don't even think it's going to get to discussion. So although there's 14 months to the next election, I don't see any way Obama's going to be able to improve the economy, number one, and improve his chances. So thank you all for coming. America is in crisis. Thank you.